All right, let's dive into the fascinating and, honestly, pretty mind-bending work of philosopher Jean-Luc Nancy. We're going to explore a really provocative idea of his, that the you think of when you're all by yourself, well, it might not really exist in the way you imagine.
So let's just start with this question, right? A pretty simple one we've all thought about. When you close the door, the world is shut out, there's nobody else around. Who are you then? What's that essential, core self that's left when everything else is stripped away?
And boom, right out of the gate, Nancy just flips the whole table over. His answer is simple, but oh man, the implications are huge. He says the whole idea of an isolated self is basically a myth. You are never, ever truly alone.
Okay, so to get our heads around this, we've got to start by picking apart a concept that's, central to the way most of us think, the individual. That self-contained, separate person that we assume is the starting point for everything. Nancy says, that right there, that's our first big mistake.
So Nancy kicks things off with a phrase we all use. People are strange. Think about when you say that. You're kind of setting yourself apart, aren't you? You're the normal one, the default. And people, they're this other, weird, messy group. But Nancy points out that in that very moment, you're actually defining yourself by them.
And this leads us to his big idea of singularity. He argues we aren't individuals in the classic sense. We are singularities. Your uniqueness, the thing that makes you you, doesn't exist in a vacuum. It only really shows up, it only becomes real in the space between you and other people. You are you precisely because you are not them. This chart really helps lay out the shift in thinking. The old idea, the individual, is all about being self-contained, isolated. But Nancy's singular being is relational, it's exposed. And here's the key. Look at primary versus co-original. It means we don't just exist first and then decide to have relationships. No. For Nancy, we are born with and through others. Our origin story is a shared one right from the very start.
So, if we aren't these separate, isolated little islands, then what are we? And this question brings us right to the heart of Nancy's entire philosophy, the simple but incredibly powerful idea of with.
For hundreds of years, Western philosophy has been built on this bedrock idea. I think, therefore I am. The I is the solid ground. It comes first. But Nancy steps in and says, nope, that's not the real starting point.
This is it. The fundamental truth of our existence is plural. Before there's an I, there's already a we. Existence itself is a shared thing. And this isn't just some nice, fluffy sentiment about community. For Nancy, this is the literal structure of reality.
So here's the absolute key concept. Being with. The with isn't some kind of glue that you add later to connect people who already exist. Not at all. The with is the fabric itself. It's the shared world, the shared time and space that makes it possible for any one of us to even appear. To be is to co-be. Our existence is fundamentally a coexistence.
Okay, I know this might all be sounding a little abstract, a little philosophical, but this is the moment where Nancy's ideas become incredibly urgent. This is where it gets real. Because what happens when we forget that our being is always a being with?
Everything. It has everything to do with it. The moment we reject being with and instead chase after this idea of a pure, isolated self, well, that has devastating consequences. Nancy was writing this in 1995, with the names of places like Bosnia, Rwanda, and Chechnya in the headlines. He saw a direct, brutal line from a bad philosophy of the self to the absolute horror of war.
He contrasts these two ways of thinking. On one side, you've got the logic of purity. This is the attempt to create a pure identity, a sovereign nation, totally scrubbed clean of any outside influences, and its main tools are exclusion and ultimately cleansing. But on the other side is the logic of the mêlée. It's a French word for a jumble, a mix-up, a scuffle. And that, he says, is the truth of how cultures actually work. A messy, alive, constant process of encounter, exchange, and mixture.
This quote, it just says it all, doesn't it? For Nancy, this dream of a pure identity, whether it's national, ethnic, or religious, it's not just a simple mistake in thinking. It's a moral and political catastrophe. It's what happens when you deny the fundamental truth of our shared existence, and it leads straight to violence against anyone who is different.
So, after taking a wrecking ball to our old ideas about ourselves and our communities, Nancy leaves us with this huge, profound challenge. Where do we possibly go from here?
I mean, think about what we've just taken off the table. We've learned that we are not one single unified body, like a giant organism. We're not just a random bag of separate individuals either. And we are definitely not some pure exclusive club defined by who we keep out. So, if we've thrown out all the easy answers, what is left? What are we?
And this is the final brilliant takeaway. Nancy's work shows us that our togetherness isn't really a choice. It's just the basic condition of being human. So the real work, the ethical work, the political work, the personal challenge of our lives is not to keep asking if we're connected. It's to constantly ask and fight for and reimagine how we live out that connection. And that's the question he leaves us with.